Four sentences in Genesis 6 introduce us to the story of the sons of God, the daughters of men, and the Nephilim. For those of us in the 21st century, four sentences is just not enough information.
No, it's not. But fortunately for us, we have the first book of Enoch, and it gives us much more information about the Nephilim story than the Bible does. So we're going to do something we don't usually do, which is to read the story of these sons of God straight from the first book of Enoch. More specifically, we're going to read from what is called the Book of the Watchers. Chapters 1 through 36 of the first book of Enoch. Watchers is a biblical term found in the book of Daniel for the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, that came down from heaven to mate with human females. The term for watcher is from the Aramaic, one of the few times in the Old Testament that Aramaic is used instead of Hebrew. The term for watcher is from the Aramaic phrase "ir," and it means wakeful or a wakeful one, a watcher or angel. Therefore, a watcher was considered an angel sent from God.
Earlier, we quoted from the book of Daniel about the various princes who were working for or against God's will on earth. The prince of Greece, the prince of Persia, and Michael, who's described as Daniel's prince. What I'd forgotten is that earlier in the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's dream involved the watchers. It says, I saw in the visions of my head, this is Nebuchadnezzar, while on my bed, and there was a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. Daniel 4:13. According to the book of Daniel, it was the watchers who told King Nebuchadnezzar of his punishment. Daniel 4:17. The decision is announced by the watchers. The holy ones declare the verdict, so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on the earth and gives them to anyone he wishes and sets over them the lowliest of people. Once again, this idea of sons of God, angels, or now watchers, as we're calling them, interacting or interceding on behalf of human beings is biblical. In fact, we see both Daniel and the king of Babylon took the presence of these beings as very real.
You know, the challenge is that we are now in the 21st century and we're students of the Enlightenment, people of reason. We dismiss most spiritual accounts out of hand because they don't fit with our current worldview where everything can be measured, tested, and understood within the physical realm. And that is so true, Kathy. I mean, we want answers to everything.
We do. But Gary, not every culture in the world is like our American culture or our Western culture. I know in my ministry work, I would speak to ministers and pastors out of Africa or people from Africa. Their spiritual experience was very different from mine, where they would have experience of seeing demons and angels and stuff that I can't connect with at all, but it was very, very cultural.
Sure.
So let's look closer at this story of the watchers that we find in 1st Enoch. And as we read, let's try to put ourselves in the shoes of a 2nd century Jewish reader rather than a 21st century American. We will start in chapter 6, where this story starts. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. So far, what we've got here, Gary, sounds a lot like the biblical account, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously he's expanding on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they swore all together and bounded themselves by mutual imprecations, which does mean cursing, by the way, upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. These are the names of their leaders. And Gary, I'm going to do my best with this, okay? I don't know. Okay, so we have Simjaza, their leader, Arekabah, Ramael, Kokobiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Baruch, Kayael, Sael, Armaros, Batarel, Anael, Zakiel, Semsapael, Satarael, Turel, Samjael, Sariel. These are their chiefs of 10. So I took the hard job.
You
right
did,
there.
and I'm glad you did. I'm really appreciative of that. And I couldn't help but think of the name Israel.
That's right.
Struggle
Isn't
with
it?
God and man. There's no coincidence that God gave them also
Those
the
names.
name with his name within
Exactly.
it. And all these angels have, as we'll see earlier, some of God's faithful angels also
Absolutely
have
have
that
L in them,
L
right?
in their
Right,
name.
so do his prophets.
Exactly. Very good. Okay, so let's go to chapter 7, verse 1. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them with charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells. 3,000. We'll talk about that in a moment. Who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts, reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Okay, just a note. We read that the giants were 3,000 elves. I said 3.
Yeah.
This is actually believed to be a scribal error because the L is 3.75 feet. And that would make these giants 11,250 feet tall, and no human woman would be able to mate with something that big. Now, does this error then negate the entire story? Absolutely not. These types of errors are often found in different versions of biblical scrolls. For example, we can identify them when we're comparing the Masoretic text with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Septuagint. Sometimes a letter is missing, or sometimes it isn't even clear if the author intended one letter versus another one because they look very similar. Luckily for us, we have spelling and grammar checks, and even then we make errors. We're only human, right?
As were they, right?
Yeah, as were they.
Now, some believe that these giants began to eat the people, like in a form of cannibalism, kind of. It's noted by many scholars that the description of these giants sinning against animals is some type of bestiality. Now, this idea could set the stage for what happens with the animals coming into the ark, where only certain ones come in and the others perish. And we'll talk about that later. So let's keep reading from chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, which is cosmetics, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Amaros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakael taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel, the signs of the earth. Shamsiel, the signs of the sun. And Sarael, the course of the moon. And so men perished, and their cry went up to heaven.
Well, let's continue, chapter 9. And then Michael, or Michael, Uriel, and Raphael, and Gabriel,
That's right.
there they are, looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said one to another, the earth made without inhabitants cries, the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the Holy One of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and the God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things. Hast thou all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel has done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Samjaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven. And their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. And thou knowest all things before they come to pass, and thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them. And thou dost not say to us, what are we to do to them in regard to these?
Chapter 10. Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One, spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, go to Noah, and tell him, in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is in it. And now instruct him, that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks. Cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. And cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things that the watchers have discussed and have taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin.
Wow. Well, we're going to continue with the first book of Enoch in a moment, but first this.
Every day we pass by untold stories waiting to be heard. Those we care about may be struggling and feeling all alone. It's easy to turn away and ignore the pain, yet true friendship calls us to stand together in life's toughest moments. Sometimes the smallest gesture has the power to make the biggest difference. Be the friend who cares. Rise to the call for help. Stand by their side. Today, it's the Jewish people who need our support. They seek friends who will walk with them. Ezra International, a true friend to the Jewish people in need. Give to EzraInternational.org and become a friend to the Jewish people today.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to continue with our reading from the book of Enoch with chapter 9. And to Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst the men, and cause them to go forth. Send them to one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For length of days shall they not have, and no request that they, in their fathers, make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf. For they hope to live an eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said unto Michael, go bind Samjaza and his associates, who have united themselves with women, so as to have defiled themselves with them in their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valley of the earth, all the day of their judgments and of their consummation, and the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from henceforth be bound together with them to the end of all generations. And destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end. And let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore. And then shall all the righteous escape, and shall live and beget thousands of children, and all the days of their youth and their old age shall they complete in peace.
I'd like to discuss this idea of the Watchers teaching humans things that they weren't supposed to know, the secrets of heaven. What does this story remind you of?
Forbidden knowledge?
Yeah, this idea of forbidden knowledge. Wouldn't that be like Adam and Eve?
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Sounds like Adam and Eve. They weren't supposed to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and yet they did. Maybe a little bit like the Tower of Babel kind of thing.
Yeah,
maybe there's things we're not supposed to know.
It is amazing that there's technology, there's medicines, there's things that that full knowledge of God's wisdom would provide, but yet we're not ready for.
Right, I think that's it.
It seems that, because we will somehow pervert it and try. I think one of the motivations is that eternal life without God.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's still what we see today in this humanistic society we live in.
Absolutely.
The idea of technology, clones, implanting.
Exactly, and living forever, but where's God?
Corrupting our DNA.
Yeah, what's all that?
Yeah.
We are introduced in this section that Gary just read to a character in the story named Azazel, the one who, quote, taught all unrighteousness on earth and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. Now, Azazel is also the one to whom all sin is ascribed. Now, Azazel was not listed in the original list of 20 leaders. So why does he pop up here and take such prominent leadership role? Wasn't Samjaza the leader of the rebellion? There are many different ideas regarding this, but I decided, Gary, that I was going to use Grok, right? Okay. And I was going to ask Grok, what were all the different ideas and to summarize that for me. And then I went back and I tried to check on that. But this is what Grok said. He said, in summary, scholars generally view the appearance of both Azazel and Samjaza as a result of combining distinct traditions about the angelic rebellion, with each figure serving unique narrative and theological functions. Samjaza leads the sexual transgression, while Azazel embodies the corruption of knowledge and ritual impurity. This duality reflects the text's efforts to synthesize diverse mythic, biblical and cultural elements into a cohesive explanation of evil's origins. That was good, girl.
That's a pretty
was
good
that
summary.
right or not, but it sounded good, right?
Yeah, but I noticed, the mythical and biblical.
Yeah, that's right.
And then this is what this whole series has been about, is that there's a source of the myths, and often we're finding out that they're biblical, and the biblical truths that have been somehow, and I don't want to say perverted, but changed culturally.
Yes, exactly, over time.
Remember, all of these ancient texts, including the biblical texts, were not always transmitted in written format. For perhaps thousands of years, this story of rebellious angels has been passed down by many cultures and people groups around the world, simply by word of mouth. We talk about how the ancient myths from different societies generally have similar basic elements about godlike creatures who mated with human women. Different societies gave these creatures or characters in the story different names. And remember, these characters all shared similar characteristics across all cultures. For instance, all cultures had fertility goddesses, but they had different names. Okay, some of them, for example, Inanna, Venus, Aphrodite. Even the Catholic Church has its patron saints of fertility, including Saint Gerard, Philomena, and Saint Colette. It seems that perhaps this story of the Watchers developed along two lines. One, emphasizing the immoral sexual behavior, which came to be associated with Semjaza, and the other emphasizing the teaching of forbidden knowledge, which came to be associated with Azazel.
I want to know one thing that Grok said about the inclusion of both Semjaza and Azazel in leadership positions. Grok summarized that this was the text's effort to synthesize diverse mythic, biblical, and cultural elements, which you mentioned. So what are the biblical elements related to these leaders? Now, while you won't find any reference to Semjaza in our Bible, you can find a reference to Azazel. Most Christians aren't familiar with this reference because most don't spend much time reading the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, about the very explicit directions given to the high priest for the Day of Atonement. In this chapter, we read that the high priest must take 2 male goats as part of the offerings for this high holy day. In Leviticus 16, we read, and I'm reading this from the NIV translation, then he, the high priest, is to take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He's to cast lots for the 2 goats, one for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. But wait, that doesn't say anything about Azazel. So let's try it in another translation, the American Standard Version. And he shall take the 2 goats and set them before Jehovah at the door of the tent of meeting. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the goats, one for Jehovah and the other for Azazel. Even the contemporary English version says that the second goat is for the demon Azazel. Now, the original Hebrew says Azazel. That's what it says. But that's the problem, Gary, is when we don't read it in the original Hebrew, that we miss this reference.
There's that context again, and and you're having to use the shovel.
That's right. So even in Leviticus 16, 20 through 22, it goes on to say that what happens to this particular goat, when Aaron has finished making atonement for the most holy place, the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall bring forward the live goat. He is to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. The goat will carry on itself all their sins to a remote place, and the man shall release it in the wilderness. Now, isn't it interesting that the Bible connects Azazel with all wickedness and rebellion, just like the book of Enoch, where we read, "Thou seest what Azazel has done, and he hath taught all unrighteousness."
It's true. Leviticus also tells us that the goat of Azazel was to be taken into the wilderness, the desert. That is exactly where the book of Enoch said Azazel was to be cast. Let's look at that. Bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness and make an opening in the desert, which is Dudael. and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks. Wow.
Yeah. I want to emphasize how the book of Enoch connects the story of the Watchers and the story of Noah. It is because of the sin of these angels and the havoc it caused on the world that God saw it necessary to destroy the entire earth with a flood. Also note that the punishment for the Watchers was that they were to be bound in a type of prison until the final day of judgment, where they will be thrown into eternal fire. We're told that their children, the giants, the Nephilim, turned on each other and killed each other. But then how did Joshua and the Israelites see descendants of the Nephilim? And what did Jesus mean when he said that when the Son of Man returns, it will be like on the days of Noah? Did he mean there would be rebellious angels and Nephilim? So join us in our next part of our podcast as we ponder these questions and we address some other New Testament accounts that may very well be referencing this age-old story of the sin of the Watchers.